Hello and welcome to the Trackmania Podcast. Today we do something new, and that is a YouTube live here. That's so you also have the chance to ask some questions to the guest, and the guest is one of the most popular guests here on the podcast. He has already been on two times alone, and also recently he was on with Spam to discuss that time about the tech discussion that was going on. softyB, you're back on the podcast, but let me ask this: how is it to be back on the podcast?
Hello everyone. Hello NMD, and thanks for the invitation. Well, it's always great to take some time to discuss about the game and the Grand League, all the subjects that are linked to Trackmania. Especially now that I announced that I joined officially Nadeo alongside my studies. So yeah, pretty different way to approach this podcast, but it always feels great to discuss with you.
Hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned that now you are part of Nadeo. I believe this is the first podcast that you are officially part of Nadeo. Can you tell us what do we need to know about your role as a Nadeo employee, and what does that change from the role you had before?
Before I was working as a freelancer on the beta season of the Grand League. Right now I joined them alongside my studies. I don't know how you call that in English, but I'm doing 75% of my time at Nadeo in their headquarters and 25% at my university. I'm mainly working on as a live producer assistant, but also working as kind of an esport manager and handling all the subjects that are linked to esport on Trackmania.
Hmm. And how does it feel for you to actually be an officially employing? Is this something you have worked for, something you maybe had a goal for, and now finally achieved?
It wasn't a goal. It's surely an honor to join Nadeo and meet all the people that were behind the game for such a long time. I'm learning a lot, and that's really great for me. And yeah, I rather see this as a huge opportunity rather than a dream. An opportunity to learn a lot from experienced people at the studio, and like I said, I'm there to learn about a lot of things, and that's literally what I'm doing there.
Mm. And will now that you're an official part of Nadeo, will that change anything in the impact you have on it, or would this impact be the same as you had when you were a freelancer?
I would say at least when it comes to Grand League, I pretty much work with the same people and have the same impacts on the Grand League itself. So nothing has really changed from me joining Nadeo when it comes to the esport part at least.
Hmm. Okay, in case someone is new here, can you give us a short explanation about what is your role in the Trackmania Grand League? What is your focus points? What do you have the control over?
It's really hard to define actually what I do on the Gun League because I'm doing, I would say, a lot of things and then a lot of different things. It can go to communication, working with the marketing teams at the studio, also managing the players, being the contact point to all the organizations, working with obviously looking for all the organizations on this first season. Also working with the teams at Nadeo that are the technical teams, which are behind for example, the Open Grand League title pack and the whole system. So I'm working on the Grand League as a project, but I'm not specifically working on something. I rather like watch and talk with all the teams that are working on it and try to coordinate all the teams on the project.
Hmm. Okay, so you have yourself in charge of the Trackmania Grand League, but can you tell us who else is the head of this Trackmania Grand League that is coming up in winter 2020?
When it comes to the competition itself, I'll be the one handling all the organization. But we also have people working at the studio on the league. I'm working with someone you should know, which is Adrienne Pecher, which is the communication director at the studio. And she's been working with me since even the Trackmania World Championships. So it's almost 1 year and a half of working together. And she's doing as much work as I do on the league. So we are both working a lot on the league. But there's also all the developers that made, for example, the Open Grand League system, but they also made the Trackmania Grand League UI you've seen on the beta season. So there's quite some people, like quite a number of people working on the Grand League. Um, so I'm definitely not alone, like I was kind of on Pro League and then World Championships.
Hmm. Okay, so let's get into the news itself then. Can you tell us what do we need to know about the upcoming winter 2020, about the Trackmania Grand League, but also that we have now a new league that is called the Open Grand League?
So yeah, we announced the new competition, which is called the Open Grand League. The main lines about TMGL and OGL is that TMGL is now kind of taking a franchise system. I don't like using that word since it's kind of linked to what Blizzard does on Overwatch or Riot's now on League of Legends. We are not yet that far on the system, but we do put now the organizations at the middle of the table rather than having the players like we used to. Um, on the format, we'll discuss about it later. But the main thing about Team Gel is that now we are like having the organizations getting the slots rather than the players through qualifications. So there's no qualifications anymore like we had on the beta season. And when it comes to the Open World League, while we definitely wanted to have something for the whole community rather than only the 16 top players, especially that now it's on invitation, at least for the first season. And we also wanted to create something that could provide a way to qualify for the players to the Grand League. Open Grand League in two lines is that it's kind of Division 2 for the top players that wants to at some point play competitively and join the Trackmania Grand League. But it's also a way for the casual players to discover what esports on Trackmania is and play on the same maps, the same formats, and kind of get the feel of playing a competitive match on the game, while not being completely serious about it, since everyone is free to join and participate on each weekend.
Okay, so let's talk about the Open Grand League then. How can people participate? What do the potential participants need to know about it? What day will they play on? Do they need to be a good player? Do they need to be a bad player? What do we need to know about the Open Grand League?
Like I said, it's open to everyone. There's no registrations. You only need to download the title pack in game. You need to obviously own Trackmania Stadium, and then look for the Open World League title. And you just have to join every single Saturday, sorry, at 5 p.m. CET. Play your placement matches, and then you will be ranked in one of the four ranks. And you'll be playing against players that should have some kind of same level. You see, I think we lost NMD.
Hello?
Yeah.
No? Rip.
I think it's good now. Nope.
No.
No, it's
Fucking
good.
Now it's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So okay. Fucking hell. Okay. Where were we? I was
So yeah,
Grand League.
I was talking about the Open World League and the fact that no matter your level, you'll be able to join and play the Grand Leagues. You don't even need to train if you want. So yeah, basically Open World League is just a way for every players to enjoy playing Trackmania on some kind of esports competition, and discover what it means to play at a high level. So yeah, that's basically the resume of the Open World League.
And is there a prize pool plan for the Open Grand League? We knew that one of the storylines from the beta season of the Trackmania Grand League was that it had one of the biggest prize pools you've ever seen in Trackmania. But will the Open Grand League have a prize pool? Will the players who eventually win that get something in return?
There won't be any prize pool when it comes to the Open World League. What the players should aim for when they'll train and play the Open World League is a qualification to the Trackmania Grand League. As I said to some players, there is at least one spot guaranteed for the best Open World League player, depending on how he performs, obviously on the combine. The thing is, we still want to create some kind of rotation when it comes to the Trackmania Grand League. The idea is obviously not to have the 16th players every single season. So we do look for new talents, and that will come through the Open World League, and that's why the players that actually wants to compete on the Open World League should aim for qualifications to the next season of the Grand League.
So is it safe to say that the winner of the Trackmania Open Grand League will get a spot in Season 2? Or how would you pick a player from the Open Grand League in the Season 2 if that's the case?
So as I said, there is a combine match, which is kind of similar to what we have on the US sports, like NBA or NFL, and that will be a way for the Open World League players, the top 8, to showcase how good they are against the last 8 TMGL players, and obviously if one or multiple players of those 8 players coming from OGL plays good and beat some TMGL players, they'll surely, like, at least we'll from our side guarantee them a spot, even though, as I said, the organization still own the spots. but we do have a control on which players they pick. And if we do believe that one player does not have the level to compete against the rest of the field, we are still able to put a veto on their pick and ask them to pick a better one. And that better one will come from the combine. That means that it should be at least one of the top 8 coming from OGL.
So it's safe to say that let's say that Space Station and Matt or Noravin and Riolo performs bad in season 1, that will go for Matt and Riolo getting out, but Space Station and Noravin will still stick around, and you will ask them to pick another player, or would you say that you would say who player they can pick? Like, can it still have the option of picking someone, or would you just say you have to have this player?
There is one rule. If they want to switch their player, they must pick a player that played the combine, which means that it's else the last 8 of Trackmania Grand League or the top 8 of Open Grand League. They cannot pick any other players. So that means that obviously, if you do perform at the Open Grand League and wins it, and then let's say you win the combine, there is definitely no way that an organization won't pick you. Because obviously their goals is to win the competition, and they won't keep a player just to keep it. We obviously have some like the case will be studied like case by case, which means that if the organization has some specific reasons that are actually legit to decide to keep their player even though he lost at the combine, for example, there might be a way where the player stays in the organization. But like I said, there's no way that we don't have at least 2 Open Grand League players coming up on the next season of TMGL.
But I haven't really discovered or looked into the point system. But I had a racer in Lillehammer saying that if he plays 4 steps, and even if he wins all the 4 steps, he can have a player that is maybe placing 10th in the Open Grand League beating him. Let's say that that is the case, that a player is dominating 4 or 5 steps, but still, because he didn't play the last step, he will not be among the top 8. Would you then maybe go out of your way to get that player in because he had something else he couldn't do that day?
We actually thought sorry about this case, and it was quite a hard decision because we had such a rule on the Grand League where one step, the last step of each player was removed, because we believe that being there for 10 like 4 or 5 months, I think, each 2 weeks was a bit too hard to ask to the players. The thing is that right now the Grand League players does not have any rules like that. They must be there on the 6 weeks. And we believe that if how you could say that, but since the combine, for example, will be played on maps coming from each weeks, it will be quite weird and quite unfair to have players that did not play some weeks and some maps to be there at the combine. And the thing is, we asked play like the Trackmania Grand League players must be there, like I said, on each step. And the thing is, it's 1 hour each Sunday, which means that it's not that hard to be there, or at least not as the Pro League was back in the days, playing during the weeks. Right now, we are just asking them to prepare themselves during the week and then be there on each Sundays. And we believe that if you do want to participate, or if your goal is to play competitively at some point, you should be able to have 1 hour each Saturdays during 6 weeks. I know it may sound pretty hard, but the rule is definitely not stuck in a stone. It might change, and we might, for example, take only the 5 best steps of each players on the Open Grand League. So there is still room for discussions when it comes to that point, and we'll think about it during the next weeks and see what's the best solution when it comes to that.
In the Trackmania Grand League beta season, we saw that the group stage had this champions mode being introduced, but then when it comes to a playoff, we were back to cup mode. Is it safe to say that that will be the same case here, that you will use champions mode for the group stage, and then once we come to Lyon and the playoffs, that will be cup mode again?
The reason is pretty simple. We created the champions mode for championships, and we created the cup mode for cups. And the playoffs will be played on one day, which makes it a cup, where the regular season is a 6 weeks championship. So we'll have the champions mode on the regular season, and then the cup mode at the playoffs.
Hmm. But is there any changes from the champions mode from the last season? Will it be the same sort of rounds, same sort of maps? Is there any differences from the beta season until this champions mode?
There is some changes. We now have 6 maps instead of 5. We don't have any introduction maps anymore. And we decided together with Hillis, that is also working on the Grand League, to we basically thought that having a chance to lose your points on 6 maps was too much for the players and too punitive. But also for the spectators, having the possibility to lose your points on 6 maps is kind of too hard and not fun to watch. So the main change we will have on next season, which is basically the same that in Open World League. On the first 3 maps, you are not able to lose any points. So you just gather points on the first 3 maps, and then you'll start on the fourth map with all your points you had from the last 3 maps. And then on the last 3 maps, you'll be able to lose your points, such as last beta season. So obviously you'll have the possibility to lose a lot more points when it comes to the fourth map. But then it's up to you to perform and play consistent and not lose all those points on the last 3 maps. So this is the main change. We also add a best lap time rule on the Grand League. So on each map, the driver that has the best lap time will gain 2 points, 2 extra points. This is obviously something you should link to what Formula One is doing, and we believe that this will kind of help the players that has nothing to play anymore, or fade hard and are playing the last positions, to try something and try to get that that best time lap. Um, so yeah, those are the main 2 changes when it comes to the champions format.
Hmm. But is there any reason why? Have you talked to the players about what they felt about losing points and being at risk at losing points, and then eventually not? You still have it in. So is there? Have you talked to the players? Have the majority of the players said that we like this? We like to have the risk of maybe actually losing all the points on the last map and essentially ruin the whole step, or is this a decision that you, Hillis, and the rest of the leading team has taken alone?
Um, we believe in the champions mode, and even the players told us that at the end they get used to it and they are fine with the champion mode itself. So we didn't ask them how they felt about it, but we obviously felt that reducing the amount of maps where you can lose your points will be a benefit for them. And I guess all the players that are participating right now, I won't speak for them, but they are fun with the format, and they just adapt themselves, and they're driving driving skills to the competition and the maps and the format. So we didn't have at least any complaints about it.
Hmm. But will in the season or in the beta season there was the maps was announced, like the map order. You knew what map was going to be first. You knew what map was going to be last, and you added this €100 to prevent that, so people actually train all the maps. But will it now
Mm.
be a map rotation, or will the map order still be known for the players before they eventually compete on them?
They will know the map order, and we also kept the rule of giving a cash prize to the map winners, and we even extend that to the top 3 of each maps. I mean, I can pretty much say that it's not announced yet, but the rule book will be out next week, I guess. But there will be 200 euros on each maps. The winner of each map will win 125 euros. The second will have 50 euros, and then the third one will have 25 euros, which makes it 5.2 or 3.6 euros, since there is 18 maps for the whole regular season. We do think that winning a map should be rewarded, and it even add some spiciness to the racing, to the race. Sorry. So this is something we want to keep, and plus, like, adding the best lap time rule will definitely spice the things up during the race, and you'll have multiple races inside the main race. So that's pretty cool.
Hmm. But what is the reason for the maps to be known? What is the benefit you see from having the map order known instead of having it unknown? Because if it's unknown, I would, at least as a player myself, train all the maps equally, even though there is like a prize pool. But what benefit do you guys see from having the map order known beforehand?
Again, pretty simple. We do not want to have any random rules. So randomizing the map order will make that map order random, obviously, and that's something we do not want to have on the Grand League. If the player feels that he do not want to train one or two or three maps, well, it's up to him. But we definitely proved something last year, where if you do not train all the maps, there is no way you'll get into the top 8, because winning, like training the last map only, will make you win 12 points, 10 points, and that's something you'll never get to playoffs with.
Hmm. I got a question in chat here. He says that he doesn't understand why lapse mode is more suitable for Trackmania. He would like to hear the reason behind that. Why do you not just stick to rounds? From what I speak to, or people I speak to, I haven't heard too many who said that they enjoy the champions mode more than the rounds mode. Personally, I like the playoffs a lot more than I like the group stage, because it was this close battles again. But why do you guys see the lapse modes being suitable for Trackmania?
Um, Again, I'll speak about a spectator view, where the rounds mode is pretty hard. I wouldn't say hard to understand, but like, you have the cars driving one map during 5 different rounds, which makes the car respawning 5 times, and you do not get quite the point of the race. I'm talking like for the player, for the viewers that didn't know anything about Trackmania, where let's take it as an example, Formula One, where it will make less sense to have the cars making one lap and then stopping, then one lap, then stopping. It makes more sense to have 6 laps or multiple laps on the same map, and an actual race, rather than having like 5 races in one map. And I mean, we still have the cup mode on playoffs, and the playoffs will be the main thing during the league. So there is no answer from us coming, like, saying that we do not believe in the cup mode anymore, or we do not believe we only believe in the lap mode. We still do think that both modes has something to add to the competition, and that's why we have the lap mode on the regular season, and then still keeping the idea of rounds on the playoffs.
Hmm. But if I ask you personally, what would you say as a fan yourself of Trackmania? What do you enjoy the most to watch? Is it the cup mode when it's basically close every round, but it's a shorter race, or is it the champions mode where it's a lot of laps and you get a little bit of distance between the players to see maybe who is the best overall?
Um, Coming from last year, I had a lot of negative points on the champion modes itself. It was kind of boring at some point, because 10 laps was too much, and I would say, like, only the first and the last laps were really interesting, because a lot of things could happen. So we did reduce the number of laps, but we also believe that lap mode. Well, I believe that lat mode is much more interesting to watch when you like during 1 hour. I rather have a lap mode rather than seeing a cup mode. And when you go offline, it's surely something that the cup mode is better at. Because watching lap mode on offline events is surely much more boring um, than the cup mode, and that's why I personally like. I don't have any preferences. I think each mode has something positive and some negative aspects as well, and that's why we are still using both. And I personally obviously enjoyed. I actually enjoyed some steps more than the playoffs themselves. For example, the last step obviously was really good to watch with the pressure of Kappa maybe making not making the playoffs. The first step was also really great to watch because it was the beginning. Um, but I also think that both modes has something to give to the competition, and both of them are really good to watch.
You bring up the playoffs, and we speak about the playoffs. What do we need to know about the recently announced playoff that is going to take place in Lyon? What do we need to know about? Is it going to be any changes from the beta season to this playoff in Lyon?
Not really. Probably this. Not even probably. It will be the same format. They will have 10 maps coming from the regular season switch into a start and finish maps. There will still be the pick and ban and the same idea of having a double elimination bracket played in 120 points each match. So nothing really changes except the fact that we have a bigger stage and a stage that is only dedicated to Trackmania itself.
Hmm. And there was a little bit of confusion about how many players will actually go to Lyon. The Lyon article stated that 6 players will go. I say that after I spoke to you that 8 players will go. But let's get it set in stone. Why is there a confusion about the 6 and 8 players? How many people will actually go to Lyon?
So it was quite confusing because there will be 8 players, but only 6 that will play on stage. We'll have the first 3 match of the bracket played in a closed area without any internet connection, so you won't have any stream. Sadly, it probably will be recorded and then released right after. Um, and then the last 3 matches will be played on stage starting 8 p.m. Including the loser bracket final, the winner bracket final, and then the grand final.
But obviously, it's nice to see Trackmania getting to Lyon. But is the format overall for this season scheduled so that you could go to Lyon? I spoke to you at the Paris Games Week, and you said that the reason because the beta season was so long was because you wanted to go to Paris Games Week. Is the reason why this winter season is so short because you wanted to go to Lyon to have a playoff?
Not really. We actually wanted to have 6 steps even before knowing about Lyon. So the fact that Lyon was happening at that time, we surely adapted the beginning of the competition, but we didn't choose to switch from 10 to 6 steps because of Lyon. That was just like I would say something pretty convenient, but not really a choice of doing that because of that.
Hmm. If I ask you just the overall questions about the beta season, what would you say is the thing that you personally have learned the most from hosting a beta season and maybe a competition that was more controversial and at least you got a lot of negative feedback compared to, let's say, the Pro League and the Trackmania World Championship where basically everybody was positive. But did you learn anything personally from having maybe to face a shitstorm from in Discord and people maybe not being as positive towards you?
Um, well, I actually when that happened on Discord last year, I think Helis was right on one thing. Is that it was bound to happen. We needed something like that to discuss all those points we discussed during that day. It surely went a bit too high, or at least it was a bit too much on the discussions, and players started even to be aggressive, as well as Hillis was a bit aggressive on his words. but it was really needed, and at the end it helped us as a lot of things to have something better on the first season. We did learn a lot about the maps during the season. I do think that the current maps are way better. At least that's what I'm having coming from the community. I didn't had that much of complaints when it comes to the maps, except the identities. But that's something that will stay no matter what. So, like many players says, if you want to play competitively, you'll have to adapt to those identities, because that's something that makes the map interesting. At some like that's the whole point of the map. The rest of the map is pretty linear and pretty easy to drive and to watch. But you have to have like special moments that can where everything can go wrong for the player, and where players can lose their points basically. So we learned a lot from the maps, but also from the format. I've said to you all the changes we have coming up this season, so we learned on that. And we also obviously wanted to see how the public will react to the Grand League, and seeing the numbers were well, we definitely think that it went well, and now we are fully ready for a true season.
Okay, so let's get into the maps then. You brought it up, the identity. Can you explain to people how was the maps for this season built? We know that there was no publicly request out there. What is the reason behind that, and what can you tell us about how the process of making the maps was?
So as I said, I'm working on a lot of subjects, and time is pretty precious, especially when it comes to the maps. I don't have that much time that I had, for example, on the Pro League or the World Championships to test all the maps, or even having a map testing group of people. So it takes time, and I would say that it's a lot like I wouldn't say I'm losing time doing this, but I should spend this time on much more like important things rather than um, the maps. And I'm saying that not because I do think that having a public map request is bad, but for example, last year when we had that public map request, like I said, 50% of the maps had as an identity a water bounce or a flip or something pretty easy, and I think people didn't get what we wanted on the maps. But some mappers did understand, such as Firestorm, Table, Superall, Babi as well. So I believe that working with them will be much more useful. I even asked, for example, Deska, which mapped only an introduction map last year, but I believe that he did understand what a Trackmania Grand League map should look like. So I'm rather spending times and talking with those mappers than having a public map request where 70 maps will be about water bounce identities. And I think it's working. It's definitely working. Um, Obviously, I do think that, and they've told me that the mappers that they are not really okay with mapping according to the identities we give to them. Um, but at the end, watching how the player reacts to the identities and drive them, there is nothing random. There's nothing really that bad, at least coming from them. So I think it's a great way to work with the mappers, and that's how we will work during the whole season. But obviously, I'm not saying again that map requests shouldn't be something. Trackmania is about making maps, and everyone should be able to make maps. And that's why I still said on the Discord that if you do think that you have a map that should be on the Grand League, you are free to send it to me on Discord, and that remains. If you do feel that your map should be on the Grand League, and you send it to me, and it's actually really good and fits the competition, there is no issue of me picking the map and putting it on one step.
Hmm. Okay, so you say that you sent out the map identity, so I assume that it was not Deo Labs who built the map identities, but you also said that you believed in the mappers that you contacted. Why can you not simply let the mappers build everything and they can come up with an identity as well? Why do Nadeo Labs feel the need to actually build the identity?
The thing is, I believe that those mappers can do great identities, and right now I even asked them to make their own identities and see how it will be. And I think we like people should understand that we do not like making the identities, or we do not. It's not a real pleasure of making the maps ourselves. But at some point, that we need to put a standard, and especially on those identities, and show those mappers and the community what the identities will look like during the whole season. So those identities are rather an example, and a way to show what we do want on the Grand League. And then, like, for example, I'm working with Table, which make his own identity, and we actually think it's a great identity, and it's a great map that you'll see on the next steps. Um, so we are not close to the idea of having the mappers themselves mapping the identity, and we even we will even enjoy having that, because it puts less work for us on the mapping. So once we do believe that the mappers understood what the identities and the map should be on the Grand League, they will be free to do whatever they want on the maps, and that's the case with Table right now, which literally made a map from scratch and even made the identity, and the map will be on the league. So yeah.
If there's any mappers listening to this and maybe they want to take some inspiration of the current map pack, which map would you say has the current best identity? Which is the most, let's say, representative of what you really want? Is there a combination of everything, or is there a map that you personally feel that sticks out and is maybe the best identity, maybe the least, what to say, difficulty and not too punishing?
Well, the thing is, we know how the Open Grand League, which makes the mapping pretty hard for us, because we still have to map something where the Grand League players will be able to compete and be able to fail as well. Because at some point, I think that it's like in Formula One or other sports, some people at least watch the competition to see people fail and player fails, um, and we do like to see players failing, as long as it's not random. And it was on some case last year, so that's why we did change that. Um, so it's pretty hard for us to find the perfect line between being hard enough to allow the Grand League players to fail on some laps, and being easy enough for the Open Grand League players to perform on the map and enjoy training them. So we still learn a lot on that side. I believe that some maps are a bit too hard on the map pack we released, and some are too easy. Um, I would say that the perfect identity, or at least the best one, is definitely Bright Side, because it allows the casual players to drive the identity in a safe way by just going straight forward and doing a flip. But then, if you do want to gain a lot of time and being able to compete on the Grand League, but also as the top 8 of the Open Grand League, you'll have to take the risky line, and going on the sides. Um, so I do think that that identity is what we want. Um, we even had a line, or at least an explanation we gave an explanation to the mappers. An identity should have an easy way and a hard way, but those two ways should be uh, how do you say that? But they should be on the same route. You shouldn't have a right way, which is an easy one, and a hard way, which should be on the left side, and then you cannot follow both ways. You should be able to see the easy way and the hard way from the same perspective, and that's why Bright Side is probably the best one of the pack, I would say.
Hmm. You said that maybe the identity is for people to have something to look forward to. You said that maybe some people like to watch people or the players fail. So is there actually a reason for an identity to be in there to maybe watch the best players crash and maybe to not have this consistent as we had in tech when basically there was never really any big crashes. It was always close rounds. So is the reason why the identity is there to knock some people out every round and eventually live with the people who has done the least mistakes instead of having the people who actually are the fastest?
I don't think that's the way to define it. It's not about seeing the people failing the least to win the map, because at some point you can also say that it's the people that perform the best that won the map. Identity is not there to force people to crash. You can still, and we'll probably see on the Grand League, people making the six laps perfectly and not failing the identity. The thing is, if you do make it 6 out of 6, that means that you should be able to win because you deserved it, and because the identity, like, it's pretty hard to do it 6 out of 6 consistently. So we still like learn about the balance between mm, being easy and hard enough for both competitions. But I do think that like seeing those maps, for example, I do see a lot of Trackmania Grand League players and even Open Grand League players making the identity 6 out of 6, and they won't fail, and they deserved it because the identity is pretty hard to do consistent. So yeah, I mean, at some point, the best guy and the guy that failed the least, if you want to say it like this, will win the map.
I got a question in chat. Is if they have an identity that matches standard, can it send it to you, and eventually can it even be picked for this season, or have you already have all the maps for this season, and that will maybe be for the summer 2020 edition?
We don't have all the maps. We have actually 8 maps out of the 18 we need. So yeah, definitely feel free to send the identities. Doesn't mean that it will be accepted, but at least you'll have a reason from us why it's not fitting the competition.
Hmm. Let's move into the next topic and maybe the storyline itself, or at least this Trackmania Grand League, and maybe the continuing part of Trackmania is that a lot of big orgs are coming into Trackmania. How did you guys come up with the idea of, okay, we now need to contact orgs to maybe help this Trackmania or help this game grow forward? Whose idea was it, and how did you eventually move forward with that idea?
It's a long story, and it's the result of a huge amount of work coming from me and Adrienne. As I said, she's the girl working with me on the Grand League, and she's the communication director at the Ubisoft Studio Nadeo, Ubisoft Nadeo Studio, sorry. And the idea came from me, but then I obviously discussed with all the people working on the league and see how we could make it better. So the first idea, and some people, like only a few people knows about it, but the first idea was to have 8 organizations with 2 players from each organization. Because at the time we had Solari, we had Gamers Origin, we had M&M that had multiple players. Um, so that was the first idea. And then when we started looking for organizations, we actually saw a huge how do you say, but a lot of huge organizations were interested in the project, and they shared to us that the project was really interesting for them, and Trackmania is a game that they played or they know about since a long time. So we decided, I took the decision to switch the 8 teams to 16 organizations. It was a ballsy move. At that time, I didn't know if we could have 16 organizations. Actually, at that time, we had like 7 organizations, and we even like didn't have the 8. But I did think, and I did believe in the project, and we all did at the studio. So we did took that decision 1 month and a half ago. Um, and then yeah, it was a huge amount of work for us, contacting organizations, making a presentation to each one of them, having some refusing to get in, but also some getting interested and moving forward with them. So we did work a lot the last month, and it was really exhausting, I would say. Um, but at the end, we have 14 organizations, with a lot of them getting on Trackmania for the first time. Um, Something that was also hard. It was to place the players into the organizations. Um, I don't know. For example, when I did contact Nordivind, which is the team, which was the team announced yesterday, and I'm so glad to see Bergi, Riolu, and Virtual um, having their position at Nordivind, and I'm pretty sure the project will be insane, and they'll enjoy being in the organizations because they have such great guys at Nordevine. But when I did contact Stein Willman, which was actually the Big Three CEO, he was like really interested instantly because those guys knew about Trackmania and they even like wanted to go back on the game. And the first thing he asked me is that will there be someone that could lead their project? And Bergli was my first choice because he's a Norwegian guy, and they are a Norway organizations. So that part was really hard because you had to find the perfect guy for each project, which have different aims and goals. So even when it comes to the players, we had that issue with not really an issue, but with Solari, where we did had to find a solution for Bren and Carl, because there was no way that Bren and Carl couldn't play the next season because Carl won the regular season and owned his spots, and Bren was at the final, so there was no way for us to exclude one of them just because of the one player per organization. And at the end, we did find a solution that actually separate Solari from Lunari and Bren from Carl. So everything is fine. But to come back on the story about the organizations, yeah, it has been a tough month. It was pretty hard to convince a lot of organizations. But at the end, the thing is, we do not want to go faster as we can on the game. Many games did that, and at the end the game died. Um, we did not look for a tier one organizations, for example, because we do not believe that Trackmania is ready right now for those organizations, and we even ourselves, we do not want to have those kind of organizations right now. We will go forward with the smaller organizations, which are still big, but at least those organizations are fully committed onto the game and really interested by the game. And I know one point that was really important for me is that all players could feel a support coming from their organizations. Um, I've seen a lot of people saying that why didn't you put Rollin and Revolution into an organization? Yes, if we wanted to, we will have easily 16 organizations. The point is, I do not want to have an organization just for the sake of having one, and I do not want to put the player in a situation where he's just putting a tag and be given a sweatshirt and then playing for the organizations freely. I do care a lot, also because I'm coming as a manager, but I do care a lot about the players, and I do care about how they feel when they play on the game and how they feel while playing for an organization. And I believe that it was not the right time to put Rolling or Revolution on one smaller organizations. Um, and like I said to them, if you do perform on the track, if you do what I'm asking you to do, you will have a great home on the next season, and you'll be like respected enough as a player, and not just being like playing with a tag without any advantage coming from this organization.
Okay, so what requirements did you then have for the orgs joining? Was it a certain amount of social media following? Was it a certain amount of salary they had to pay the players? Was it a certain amount of support they had to show the players? What was the reason behind, or what was the requirements for the eventual 14 orgs that is joining Trackmania?
I'm not gonna be able to obviously say everything about it because it remains between us and the organizations. But like I said, we are not looking for a huge organization. We do not feel that Trackmania should like start with teams like Liquid, Cloud9, G2, Vitality. Um, we did contact those organizations, and we did have some discussions, but Trackmania yet has to we have to say as Ubisoft Nadeo that Trackmania is not a tier one esport game, and we have to assume it and work with it. So that means that we have to go step by steps and evolve through time, and that means that also we don't need to to have huge organization yet. It will come over the time when the game will be ready, and when those organizations will feel ready to go on the game. But we still believe that it's important for us to work with organizations that enjoy the game and enjoy being part of the Trackmania history, rather than just having huge organizations coming in for financial aspects or things like that. So there wasn't any specific rules when it comes to organizations. I did make a list according to subjective criteria, and we did invite a certain amount of teams. But you in that list you have really small organizations, but you also have huge organizations such as Nordevine, for example. And the main thing, the two main thing about that list is that I wanted to be sure for the players that they are respected enough, and it doesn't go through a salary. Essentially, it can go through a lot of things, a communication support, but also being loved. I would say loved is a huge word, but being supported by the organization itself. And the second point was, um, we do want we only want organizations that are there for the game and not for the money itself. Obviously, money is really important when it comes to esport. It's a market like every single other market. But the first thing when you come into the game shouldn't be the financial aspect. It should be like the game itself and being proud of having players driving and training a lot of times to perform each weeks, and feel the pressure of seeing your player losing your points on the three last maps or things like that. And with all those organizations that are announced, we believe and we know that it will be the case. So those are the two main points when it comes to the organizations.
Hmm. Obviously, we have some orgs in Trackmania already, basically mostly playing the team tournaments. How much did you talk with the likes of Venture, Elementaries, Fury, and why eventually are not those orgs that was in Trackmania before and has been in Trackmania for a long time getting a slot in the Trackmania Grand League?
So like I said, there is also there was those two main points, but there is also some subjectives criterias where like for example Fury is a bit too small and wouldn't be able to communicate in like enough, or at least have a proper environment around their player. um, we still are thankful to the organizations that are on the game since a long time, and that's why we instantly without any hesitation asked to teams like Solari, Gamers Origin, Diffuse Kids, M&M. I'm probably missing some, but we still care about those organizations. They trusted us by coming into the game without any specific projects. Um, and we want to move forward with those organizations, but also the new ones that are coming on inside the game. Um, but there is obviously, like I said, money isn't the main thing. But this is something important, obviously, when it comes to the league itself. Um, as of today, most of the players get a salary, but they also get a proper communication behind them. They have a huge amount of people handling themselves. Um, and if we didn't invited an organizations into the league, it's else because of we didn't felt that they filled in those criteria, or there is a second reason, which is that we didn't wanted too much organizations coming from the same country, which works for France, for example, where we also already have a lot of organizations coming from France. But our goal through the Grand League is also to export that visibility on an international plan, which makes, for example, we do have now two North American organizations. We go into the Nordics with Nordevines. We also have now two United Kingdoms organizations, one Comoran coming from Spain. So for the case for Venture, for example, let's take that example, because this is probably the main one, and I think people want to know, at least some people want to know, why we didn't talk to those kind of teams. Well, Venture is a French organization, even though they do have international players, and we believe that we also again lost NMD. Pretty good.
Jesus Christ, do you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah.
Jesus, this Discord is just alt F4ing. But yeah, continue with venture if people can hear me.
Yeah. So what I was saying about Venture is that we already have a lot of organizations coming from France, and they proposed a bit more things than Venture, such as OCR, for example, which actually didn't have any players, but they were on the game, and we believe that they should be on the league because they trusted the game, and they are in a special time for them to where they are looking to evolve, and I think like they can do that with the league, and we can also profit from them. For example, when it comes to the communication, I don't know if you guys seen, but they will have Pentouf, which is a pretty huge French streamer as a caster, and we do believe that's the way to go. Um, so when it comes to venture, it wasn't really in the idea of them not being able to support enough their players, but rather than we already have a bit too much French organizations on the game.
Hmm.
On the league, sorry, not on the
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
We,
yeah.
we, we will never have enough organizations on the game.
A question in chat here from AO. He asked, how many seasons did these orgs that is coming in sign? Is it some orgs that has 1 season, some has 2, some has more? How many seasons are they in for at the moment?
You should know, without getting too much into the details, all those organizations will be there for at least the season 1 and the season 2. So they have a guaranteed spot on season 2 as well. But they are also free to leave the league if they want to between those two seasons. Um, and yeah, they are there for at least 1 year, 1 full year on the league.
Yeah, okay. Virtual also asked, it says it's nice to see the North American organizations coming in. Do you think there is a possibility or potential for Trackmania in Asia in the future? Obviously, we had the Chinese stream for the beta season, but is there any plans on contacting Asian orgs in the future?
Um, like I said, Grand League is about going international, and on the map you obviously seen, and you've seen that we didn't have any Asian organization onto the league. There is one huge reason about it. It's not about the fact that we cannot convince Asian organizations, or we do not want to have Chinese or South Korean organizations onto the league. Um, there is actually two reasons. The first one being the time zone, which is not really convenient for those organizations, because we are playing this at 8 p.m. CET, which makes it, I think, 1 a.m. in China, for example. So that's not the best thing right now. And there is also the fact that we do not have any Chinese or South Korean player that can compete into the league. But you guys should know that this is probably one of our main objectives when it comes to the esport. We want to go onto Asia, and we will go into Asia in a specific way that you'll discover onto the next months or years. But we obviously do not forget about Asia, because the market there is infinite, and we still believe that China has a lot of people loving the game. I heard the podcast from Bergie yesterday, where he said that when he came, he did go to World Cyber Games. He, for example, met some Chinese people saying that, how you are Bergie, I know you, I followed you, can I get an autograph or things like that. So that means that Chinese people do enjoy racing games, and we do think that they will enjoy playing Trackmania, and at some point we will go there, I think, at least when it comes to esport. So yeah, we won't miss any part of the world. You could say as well as South America. The thing is, for example, that there was only really Matt that could compete onto the league, and he was already taken by Space Station. So it was pretty hard for us to convince a Brazilian organization to come onto the game. Even though they liked the game, they couldn't find a Brazilian player to fit their organization. So the thing I can say is that there is a lot more organizations interested by playing the league and participating into the league. We just missed some cases when we discussed with them. And the right now the biggest issue we have on the game is the player base, which really is hurting the game, I would say, at least from a competitive side of it. So we are doing, and this is something I'll put all my efforts on, is that we want to extend that player base, and Open Grand League is the first step. But we do want to see much more talents, new talents coming onto the game, and maybe one day beat players such as Carl, Spam, Pack, and themselves, like the players themselves won't be playing Trackmania for 10 years, the next 10 years. So we need to renew that player base, and this is one of our main objectives.
But we talk about China and Asia. We had a Chinese stream. Is there? How would you sum up that project? Is that a project that will continue? Because if we move to the casting point of it, there is not going to be an official cast. But will China continue to streaming, or is that project also now dead?
As I said, China is a pretty special project. So we won't have any Chinese stream anymore. About the beta season, I think it was a huge success just by the fact, for example, that on the playoffs, we had 5,000 people watching, or 6,000, I think, people watching the playoffs, which makes it 6 times bigger than what we had on the French or English stream. So there is definitely a huge potential in China, and we are working on it. But it takes time, and you'll know more about it in the next years, I would say, because it's not something that should be taken easily, to be honest.
One of the biggest reaction from this announcement was that when Bren was announced for Lunary, people said that okay, this probably doesn't fit the one slot per org situation. How would you sum up the Solary slash Lunary situation? What do we need to know about it? Is it the same org? Is it different orgs? Why do we have Solary? Why do we have Lunary? And if it's the same org, why couldn't other orgs get 2 slots?
Like I said, people shouldn't be asking for everything, and they should also don't know about everything of what we do. The thing I can say is that Lunary or Solary have the same commitment into the league. They are completely separated, even though they come from the same people. Um, and they had the same rules than any other organization onto the league, and they had even special rules by the fact that Bren has some kind of links with Solary. So it's even harder for them to be there with 2 teams on the league. And I've seen many people saying, why M&M didn't have 2 teams, or why Pulse couldn't have roll-in or things like that. Everyone had the choice. Gamers Origin as well, I can say that. Everyone had the choice of doing the same thing as Solary. And by everyone, I mean Gamers Origin and M&M, because those were the 2 cases, plus Solary. So they had the choice to do that, and they didn't make it because it was maybe too much to do, and too much job to do on the league. And Solary felt that they could do it, and they could fit the requirements of having Solary and Lunary. So yeah, they made the move, and right now Bren is a Lunary player, Carl is a Solary player, and Bren could have been in team AAA or any other organizations. That's the same. There is no link between Solary and Lunary when it comes to the league. Outside of the league, we do not care if Lunary or Solary comes from the same organization. But when we talk about Trackmania Grand League, they are 2 separated organizations, and they do not have anything linked. So there is no problem with that. And if you still don't get why we accepted things like that, well, just think like this. But we won't explain why and how they did that, because it's between us and them. So yeah.
One of the points that is brought up already or mentioned is that the Berg is going to be a manager, and from what I understand, basically all orgs are going to have a manager. What is the role of a manager for this, and why do you feel the need to have a manager for one player?
All the teams don't have a manager, but most of the new organizations have one. So let's take as an example Nordivind. Even though the CEO knew about Trackmania, he didn't follow the game and the league throughout the years, and to guarantee a certain stability with the relationship with all organization, you have to get a middleman between us and those organizations. So Bergi knows everything about the game. He's been there for years, and he's the guy that will be able to give advices, but also manage the whole project for Nordavine when it comes to the league. And I believe that having him will make Nordavine much more stable on Trackmania and much more supportive with the game. And that's the case for a lot of organizations where we do feel that well, for example, some of them don't have any managers. Like Space Station don't have any manager coming from Trackmania. But the thing is, I'm also kind of doing this job to make sure that like they can be aware of everything when it comes to the game and the league. So you could say that I'm kind of manager to all the organizations that do not have one. But you need to have someone that is there for each organizations to give them the updates and how the league is going. So it's really important, and I do feel that each organization at some point should have a manager. We are also pushing the coach thing. Um, I do think I did see that a lot of people feel that having a coach is not necessary or is not something that should be on Trackmania, because Trackmania is about yourself and playing alone. But as from what I've seen, I do think that's it's something, and even on esport, every single game have that aspect, even the individual games, because if a coach cannot, for example, impact the way of driving of his player, he can still help him when it comes to the mentality, but also on the mental aspect, on how he should be reacting when he fails or things like that. A coach doesn't come up only about getting your player, like giving driving skills to your players, or learning him how to drive, because I do feel that Trackmania is about yourself when it comes to driving, uh, but it doesn't come to yourself on how you react to some specific things that happen during the race, and a coach is always there to I do think that it's something really, it could be really good to push that aspect of having a player and his coach rather than only the player. Um, and I do see as well, maybe in the next years, Carl Jr. Coaching a player, giving him all the knowledge he learned throughout his whole career, and this is the case with Berge. Riolu is an insane player. He probably don't have anything to learn when it comes to driving from Berge, but he surely needs to like, he has a lot of things to learn from Berge itself, because he just had so many experience onto the game. He participated onto a lot of grand finals in front of a lot of public, and things like that can be really interesting and important for the players. So each player will have some kind of coach. This is a rule we've established, and he'll be able to shot call during the races, and he'll be the only one able to do that. So each player will have someone being able to be there with his player and calling him things if he wants to, but also being there as some kind of mental support, because this is something I do think is important, and we should push it forward, because even though some people think, like I said, that Trackmania is about yourself, it's probably not the case, because you have other games that are much more about yourself and still have that coaching aspect. So yeah, I've a bit like going to outside from the question about the manager, but in general, the whole answer is about that a player will have a manager if the organization feels the need, but also a coach to be there and support the player.
Hmm. Okay, so let's get into the players then. At the moment, you have 15 out of the 16 announced, but can you tell us about the process of actually picking the players? We see that the majority is players that have played in Trackmania Grand League or has performed well at the Curator Cup. How did these players that is in this season get picked? Is it you who picked out a group of players, then contacting orgs? Is it orgs then going out to the free market and picking who they want? How did we end up with the 15 players that we have at the moment, eventually the 16 players that we have?
It depends. I would say for 90% of the organizations, it was me giving them the names, that, or at least like giving them advice of who they should pick. And obviously, we didn't want them to pick a player that couldn't fit their requirements. Like I said, the main thing about the Grand League, our relationship with each organization is about having a long-term relationship and working together for on the next 5 years. And we want to give them a proper player that could fit their requirements in terms of performances. So I think it was important for me to handle that part because I do know how each player can perform and how um, they could fit in each organization. Some of them took the choice to pick someone else from the list I gave them. I think it was the case for one or two organizations, but for the rest, I did try to manage that part and give them the players they should have they should have. Um, there is two specific cases which are Roll-in and Revolution, and also the player that will be announced tonight. The thing is, we've like I said at the first idea was to have 8 teams, sorry, with 2 players each, and we already had some commitment coming from some organizations. Um, and when we switch onto the 16 organization system, we guaranteed the players that were already engaged with those organizations to participate onto the league. And this was the case, for example, with Revolution, which was engaged with M&M. So that's why he still get the spots. Plus the fact that he's an incredible player, and I do believe that he'll be able to probably make the playoffs because we all seen what he can do on the Spam Weekly race, for example. Um, this is the case with OL, which was engaged with Gamers Origin, Bren also with Solari. So um, we did guarantee those spots to those players. About Roll-in, for example, I've seen some people saying before we announce Roll-in, well, that's just a shame. Roll-in won't be able to participate just because he doesn't have an org, and he did make the playoffs. And you have some players that didn't make the playoffs and still participate. Um, you should understand something when it comes to the players and the whole project itself. We 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 are there to make all the things we do and all the decisions we do should be fair. And Scrappy was in the league, for example, and he was top 8 in the playoffs. And Rollin finished 7th. And there was no way for us to exclude Rollin from the second season, from the first season, sorry, just because he didn't have an org. We need those kind of players that just came up out of kind of nowhere, even though he played Nadeo back in the days. And even though he doesn't have an org, I still believe that he deserves his spots, and he showed it on the beta season. So it's the same. It's the same strategy with the Open Grand League. The guys that should be in the Trackmania Grand League will be in the Trackmania Grand League no matter what, and I'll be the one guaranteeing those kind of things because I do want to have the 16 best players onto the league and not only the 16 most popular players onto the league.
Hmm. You mentioned that it was the same case for Orwell. Is it safe to say that he is going to be the last player that is later going to be announced today then?
Yeah, this is not a surprise. I mean, um, I'm obviously not going to announce which team he is in. It will be announced tonight at 6 p.m. So in less than 4 hours. But yeah, he will be the last players, and I gave the explanation of why. He has the same case as Revolution and Bren.
Maybe we talk for 6 more hours and we can officially announce a team here as well. But can you tell us then about the main story from the beta season was that you had these nation-based qualifiers. Now that you will see 4 players then from France, you will see 4 players from Germany. You said that this is maybe one of the bad things about Trackmania, but
Mm.
why did you eventually then go ahead with this? Is this so the skill gap won't be as big, or and why did you end up with half of the players then being from Germany/France?
Um, Quite a complex subject because I'm the first guy that wants to see 16 nationalities on the Grand League. I do want to see that, and I hope at some point it will be the case. I would love to see Chinese players facing Slovakian player, facing a Brazilian player, and having that kind of um, like worldwide competition. And I really hope, and I would love to see it coming like in the next years. Um, I'm I will be honest on saying that I'm a bit sad that we have 4 French players and 4 German players. But you have to face the fact that right now the best players are coming from those 2 countries, or at least not the best players because Kappa won, for example, and Carl is probably the best player with Kappa, and they are not coming from those 2 countries. But most of the players we have are coming from Germany and France, which means that you have more players, but you also have more good players coming from those 2 regions. Which means that at some point, like I said, we want the 16 best players, and we do feel that if we have those 4 French and 4 Germans, that means that they are part of the 16 best players currently. I've seen people saying why didn't you go with a Nordic player? That was the case. That was the idea. To be quite honest, that was the idea. Finding a Nordic organization and giving them a Nordic player. Right now, we have to be honest with ourselves. There is no Nordic player that can go into the playoffs right now on the first season. Um, I did had Dunsty. I've seen the name on the chat. I did had Dunsty on the list, obviously, but I do feel that he's not yet able to make the playoffs, and that's why I didn't propose him to the organizations, because organizations are looking for the playoffs, and if I do advise them to pick a player that I know myself is not able to make the playoffs, it will kind of ruin our relationship with the organization. So I had Dunsty, I had Miquato, I had Weather, I had a lot of Nordic players that are really good and probably one of the best tech players. But I do feel myself that they are not yet capable of making the playoffs. And I do hope to see them on. I really hope to see them on the Open Grand League and see them perform and get into that top 8 and prove me wrong and prove the organization wrong during the combine. And if they do that, if they do answer on the track and they do perform, I will make sure myself that they are part of the Grand League season 2, and there is no question about that. And that goes with all the regions you can imagine. Um, my goal at the end is to have a much more larger international competition, and my goal is obviously not to have 50% of the players coming from 2 countries. So it's up to them right now. They have the we gave them the opportunity to prove themselves on the Open Grand League. If they take it and if they perform enough, they can be sure that they will join the Grand League on the next season or on the next ones.
Hmm. I have 2 players or 2 storylines that is relevant for the beta season and 2019. You obviously mentioned already that one of the funniest steps or one of the most interesting steps for you was the step 10. We eventually had the Cap failing the map 5, and eventually Kappa got that slot, and Kappa eventually won it. So the
Yeah.
first question is, why don't we see Kappa was this close to making the playoff, now getting into the season 1 and maybe having his final revenge towards Kappa and the rest of the people, and maybe showing that that cup we saw at map 5 in step 10 wasn't a cup that we should remember?
Uh, Cap is a pretty specific case. As I do have a friendly relationship with him. To be quite honest, he was planned to play the first season. He was even on the private Discord we have with all the players. And I had some specific plans for him to go into a specific organization, which was a French one. It didn't work out for reasons that I cannot say. And until that, well, we already had 16 players apart from Cap joining an organization, except from Revolution or Rollin that had a guaranteed spot. So if there was a 17 players, Cap will be the 17th player on the league. That's like for sure. But again, I've talked with him and I told him, just prove on the Open Grand League, focus yourself and show people that you are still capable of being one of the top players in the world, and show that on the Open Grand League, show that on the Combine, and if you do make that, I'll make sure again that you are joining the next season.
Yeah, and the last player, or the player I was looking the most forward to eventually seeing testing himself against the best of the best, is a player that after Serati 2019 has had a lot of good wins, a lot of strong performances. He's a young player, he's 15 years old. His name is Gwen, he's also from France. Did you think about putting Gwen in there, and eventually why didn't you pick him, and what is the case here?
Yeah, about Gwen, a pretty simple answer. He's 15. The league requires him to be 16 to be participating onto the league. Right now, I do believe that he's one of the 16 best players in the world.
Yeah.
For all the reasons you just said. So again, he's free to participate on the Open World League. I know that he will. I know that he will give everything to make it to the Combine, and I'm pretty sure he'll be able to beat at least one or two guys coming from the Trackmania Grand League. So if he does that, he has a spot coming up for him, and an organization will surely pick him on season 2. So it's kind of just an issue with his age that didn't make him play the first season.
Is there any reason why you have put the age at 16? Is there some legal problems, or is there something that you personally has? Why did you eventually put 16 then? As the
It's not
age?
really a legal problem. It is at some point. I don't know much about it, to be quite honest. So there might be something about it. But the main thing is that we are asking all the players to be there 6 weeks straight. And being 16 shouldn't, like, he's 15, so he's close, and it doesn't make him like 12 and things like that. But being 16 makes you much more available, or at least less dependent from your parents. So you can make sure of being there for the 6 weeks. Which doesn't mean we do not want to have young players coming onto the league. But there is something that brings something really important, a subject that is really important for us. You should all know that about esport on Trackmania, there is one strong rule that we'll have at the studio. Our goal is not to have is not to do what Fortnite did by for like kind of forcing players to leave school and play full time Fortnite. And many games they did that, and we think that this isn't the right way. You shouldn't be playing Trackmania with having the goal to go full time at 15 or 16 and leaving the school. You guys should focus, and that goes with for everyone that wants to make Trackmania as a work. Um, right now, it's not gonna be the case, and we even have some specific rules that forces the organizations not to have full-time players that are still in school. They do not have the rights to do that, and um, well, at least they do have, but we won't we won't agree with that. So this is something really important for us. Trackmania should be about being able to compete at a high level and still being able to focus on your studies. And and yeah, Carl Jr. won the regular season with like by a lot of points, and he's still like in his fourth or fifth year of study.
Yeah.
So that proves that you don't need to go full time to be the best. Um, you surely need to train and gives a lot of effort, but doesn't mean that you need to leave your school or your job or anything to be the best on Trackmania. And that's why we even made like easier maps or things like that. But at the end, even in the next 2 or 3 years or the next like 5 years, you should be aware that not our goal is not to have fully professional players, or at least it won't come from us. If an organization wants to like feel that his players should go fully professional and be full time, they have the rights to do so. Well, at least on the next years. But it won't like it's not our vision of esport, and that will remain the case for the next years.
Hmm. Okay, so you say that the players has to turn 16. So when does the summer 2020 edition start? And let's say that if it's after or before August when Gwen turns 16, can he get in because he's turned 16 during that, or do he has to then wait for a season 3?
He turned 16 right before. I think it's in August. We are
Yeah,
kind of.
23rd.
Yeah, I think we are actually born on the same day. So,
Oh, nice.
that is before the beginning of the first season, which makes him eligible for the second season. So if he do performs on the first season, he'll get a spot on the next one.
Yeah. Something that is also brought a lot of attention to is this that now there won't be an official cast. There will be 16 streams instead. Obviously, it's nice to have 16 streams, but why do you feel that moving away from an official cast where basically everybody can tune in at the same stream, they can chat together, they have like a place to watch if they want to be a neutral? Why did you move away from the official stream with Riolo and Radiance?
We didn't want to move away because I loved how Riolu and Radiance casted. I remember like Radiance started with I think the TMPL. I've just tuned into his stream and I liked his voice, and he didn't like he was starting to cast, but he didn't even was on like fully on that. So I love those three guys, and I love how they casted, and they provided such an amazing stream for a lot of people during the beta season. But the reason we don't want to have an official cast is that we do feel we do want to have viewers behind an organization, so like to have some kind of fan club on each streams. Um, and you still have during the season, you'll still have that doesn't mean that you have only people that doesn't know anything about the game casting. Virtual is casting for Northern, and like I'm free to say that he knows a lot about the game. So that's definitely gonna be an interesting cast. You have probably Scotsman casting for M&M. So that makes him also someone that knows the game and will be able to provide an interesting cast. But you should be watching the stream of your team or the team you are supporting. Um, for example, and that goes with the idea of kind of going international. You will have streamers from North America, from Norway, from United Kingdom, from France, Germany. Um, so if you like, I feel like if you do want to watch the league, you should be watching the team you are supporting, and that will kind of create some kind of reunion each weeks of people supporting the same team and being behind the same player. uh, there is something I didn't talk about, but during the each steps, you will play the first three maps. Well, TMGL players will play the first three maps, but then you'll have some kind of half time, which will be around 10 minutes, and each player will go with his streamer, talking about how he felt playing the first three maps, the results, maybe answering some questions of his fans on the stream. um, and this is kind of the environment we want to create, like having the people, the streamers, the community people, and the viewers close to their champions. And I think that's really good. I think you will even enjoy more watching those streams rather than you did on beta, because you'll be able to discuss with your player, have his feelings after each the stream maps, know how he prepared, know some details. They will be able as well to join the channel during races without obviously talking, but they'll be able to listen in to what the coach is saying to his players, and some kind of things. And I think that that's something you'll really enjoy. I will enjoy it for sure, and I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy how the casting will be on the Grand League. There is also the reason that the official cast was a bit that like it was a huge amount of work for us to set up. And to be quite honest, we are already like underwater right now with all the project we have. So adding that would be a bit not wouldn't be reasonable. And like I said, I do feel that you'll enjoy way more watching, for example, the Velo stream with knowing how Kappa is feeling after the first stream up, asking him how he like who do he scare on the last three, um, why he did that or things like that. So you should have an inside or listening of the players inside the steps, and that will make you live the step much more than it did on the beta season.
Hmm. Yeah, and obviously content and insights to the minds of the people is something I'm a fan of. But during the beta season, there was also this testing period where you tried to get people to interview between maps. And from what I heard, it was that people or the players didn't really like that. Have you spoke to the players before introducing this halftime? Now that okay, you actually have to talk with a caster, you
Yeah.
have to talk in between the match itself.
Yeah, this is something that might be boring, like not boring, but might be hard to do for the players.
Yeah.
Our goal is obviously to let them focus as much as they can. So during that halftime, they'll have like 5 minutes of being themselves, being alone, and 5 minutes with their streamer. Um, we do understand that it's something that can probably put the player out of his step. But we do also feel that they should adapt to that, because that is a way to show that you care about your fans, and you give them a way to follow you, basically. So um, they just have to adapt to that rule, and they will win through that. They will like they will get much more support if they do that well, and they will please their fans by doing such things.
There is a question from Sinus Apple. Do you know that if there is any orgs that looks for streamers, and if so, do you maybe plan on doing the same for as you did for players, maybe having a list of potential streamers that you can sort of recommend to streamers that or to orgs that maybe doesn't have a player or a caster that really knows what Trackmania is all about, really know the facts about the players.
Um, the streaming part is way different than the players part, because we also do want to have people that do not know much about the game, um, so that they can bring people that don't know as well about the game and discover the game and the race with them. Um, so you'll have some huge knowledge streamers and casters, but you also have some more casual people. As an example, Space Station will have huge Rocket League YouTubers casting for them, and they will bring a lot of Rocket League players that maybe don't know anything about the game, and that will be a great way for them to discover Trackmania eSport. Um, I've led the choice to all the organizations to pick their streamers. If they want to have someone that knows a lot about the game, they can. If they want to have someone more casual, they can. Um, I don't think right now we do have any streams that are not settled. But I'll definitely get like take contact with you, sign us up all if you do feel if you do want to cast, and if we do have a spot in one organization.
Hmm. And that's something I think all casters should do. If you actually want to do something, you should put your face out there, you should put your name out there and not wait until someone asks you. The best way is to actually put your name out there yourself. But
Exactly. Yeah.
Beef is asking a question about because now we will have different organizations, we will have different places where they're from, like Noravin, who is from Norway. They have a Norwegian caster, but will all casters stream in their native language, or will all have to stream in English? So basically, all people can join an English cast.
Um, they have two choices. They can also else cast in their native language. So, for example, diffuse kits. To show how not to show how the criterias are not that hard. For example, diffuse kids will stream on Spam's channel because he has already a huge community on his channel, and we do feel that it's great to push forward that channel. But the guy that will cast on Spam's channel will be able to else cast in Dutch, which is the native language of the organization, or in English, and that has been the case for all the organizations. Virtual, I believe, will cast in English, even though he's Norwegian. So yeah, I mean, if everyone has the choice. So yeah.
But do we now talk about both the playoffs and the group stage, or will there be maybe an official cast to have all people tuning into the same stream for the playoff?
For the playoffs, we'll have 2 people casting at the stage in French.
Okay.
But then all the organizations that are part of the playoffs can cast on their channels. So let's say Matt goes into playoffs, Space Station will still cast on their channel like they did on the regular season.
A question about the Open Grand League title pack. Is there any things plans to add to that, like matchmaking, global records, or other stuff?
The Open Grand League title pack is kind of on its own. It's something only for the Open Grand League, so you won't see any matchmakings or things like that, at least for now. Matchmaking is something obviously that we are discussing about because like it's on every game, and we like maybe see an opportunity of doing it, but right now this is not the case. So right now you won't have any matchmakings or global records. Well, global records we will add a global like a ranking on each maps of PBs. And you'll obviously have the global ranking of the Open Grand League on the in the title. So yeah, right now there is no matchmaking planned or other things rather than the opening Grand League itself.
A question that I believe I've brought up the 2 other times you also done a podcast, but maybe now is the time. You now have officially joined Adeo as an employee, but you're also a manager of Gamers Origin. Do you now see
Yep.
that maybe that will be a problem, that you are officially hired by the org that is hosting the event, and also being a manager for a player that is taking part in that event?
Yeah. This is obviously a subject that needs to be talking about. So yeah, I've officially joined Nadeo as you said. I'm still manager and coach of Papu at Gamers Origin, and that will be the case until the next ZLRT Cup, where I will step down from coaching Papu, so that I can fully focus on my job at Nadeo. But I started managing players like 3 years ago, with one strong goal, which was to win the ZRT Cup. To be quite honest, I planned to leave last year after the ZRT Cup because I strongly believed that we were in a position to win it, and we were actually really close. But I still have that emptiness in me of not being able to win a ZRT Cup. And I really believe that we can do it with Papu this year. And I cannot take it's too hard for me to take the decision to step down right now. I've always been fair with all the players, and I think they could say that. And I've still always like made myself clear on the fact that I'm not gonna take any decision when it links to Papu or Gamers Origin. So that will remain the case on season 1. But starting season 2, I won't be in Gamers Origin anymore. Even though we still don't win the ZRT Cup. But I'm gonna give everything still to win it with Papu. And yeah, like I said, it's too hard for me right now to live without that win at the ZRT Cup. And I still have a strong relationship with Papu. I still believe that he can grow so much as a player and as a person. And I want to be with him on the next year, at least until the ZRT Cup.
Yeah, and after the Serati Cup this year, you obviously had maybe the biggest star of your team, Pack, leaving. How did you feel about him leaving Gamers Origin at the point he did, and what do you make of him joining M&M Gaming?
Um, I still have a strong relationship with Pack because I enjoyed so much working with him at Gamers Origin. He's such a great person, such a great player. A lot of people are maybe hating him, quote unquote, because he's maybe has a too strong ego or a bit too um, I don't have the word, too too sure of himself.
Yeah.
I don't have the word. There is a word. Oh my god.
Confidence or
Yeah, confident. A bit too confident. Um, but this guy is just an amazing guy, and I loved so much working with him on all the trips we've made, all the wins he did. So I think we came into a point where he didn't felt great in a French organization. There was also some troubles with some special things with PAC, not linked to the team itself, but PAC and the organization, which made him took that decision. And I'm so happy, to be quite honest, to see him in M&M because he's a UK player and he's a new UK organization, and I really like look forward to like I really hope that he'll be happy and yeah, motivated to play for M&M, and I know that he is. So yeah, I didn't like it didn't like created anything between him and me, except the fact that he wasn't my player anymore. But I still respect him so much, and yeah, always like talk to him as I did when he was a player of Gamers Origin on the next events.
Hmm. Uh, what do you see as the main part that you can contribute to Nadeo besides maybe hosting events? Obviously, a question that is brought up a lot in Discord is that the communication part of Nadeo is maybe one of the lacking parts. But do you see any other things that you can maybe help and maybe get this communication part sorted, maybe get something other stuff sorted as well?
So as I said when I joined Nadeo, it's not only about the esport.
Yeah.
I said that studies were really important, and that's also included me. I'm not studying, like I'm not in a particular scholarship that is linked to esport or things like that, and I probably won't make esport as a living, to be quite honest. I don't know if I will still like it in the next years. Um, so the role of esport manager is kind of something aside from my job at Nadeo. I'm more into learning as a live assistant producer, which is completely different of what I actually do with esport on TMGL. And I do have I don't know how you say that, a tutor or someone that
Yeah.
helps me to learn that job. And that is the part I really enjoy more than the esport part. But coming back to your question, and kind of linked to my answer, but I'm not there to improve the communication of Nadeo when it comes to the game itself. I still do have some words to say on that, but that is not my job. Um, at least when it comes to the communication of the game itself, it's not my job. When it comes to the communication of the esports tournaments, it is.
Yep.
And I do believe that our communication on esport is good.
Yep.
At least if it didn't, I would want to know why, and if we can improve on that part, I will surely try my best to do better when it comes to the communication.
Hmm. A question that was brought up by Cousin is that have you actually tried to maybe contacting some of the OGs from the game, like Rayson, who's playing Trackmania Nation Forever, Karian, maybe Javi Flyer coming back? Have you maybe gone out of your way to maybe contact one of these old players that certainly would bring a lot of hype when you announce their return?
Um, let's say yes. I won't get into details, but we had a project for Karian,
Mm-hmm.
for him to come back on the Grand League, because I believe that he has the level and he has the legitimacy to be part of the 16 best players in the world, even though he's not playing Trackmania 2 Stadium anymore, or at least less than Trackmania Nation. So Karian was close to join the league.
Yeah.
He was up for it, and I had some plans for him with a specific organization, which didn't make worked out again for some reasons. But I do believe that you'll see Karlian on one of the next seasons, or at least I'm gonna push him to try to like maybe motivate him to come back and play the Grand League, because I believe that he still have something in him that a voice in him that say I want to compete against the best, and I would love to see Karin back in actions on Trackmania Stadium and on the Grand League. So I did contact him. I didn't contact Raysense or any other players because, as we said, Raysense was he's a German player, and we already had a lot of German player. Where Karin is a Nordic player,
Yeah.
and coming back to the question of why we don't have any Nordic players, I do think that Karin will be able to make the playoffs, where the others current players coming from that region couldn't. So I did propose him, and he'll let's see how he reacts to it, and if he plays the Open World League or be there on the next seasons.
And a question that is asked is Javi Flyer for existence. That is a Spanish orc. One of the best Spanish players of all time is Javi Flyer. Have you tried to get in contact with him as well, or?
I think like there is no way to contact him actually, or at least I didn't find a way to contact him.
Yeah, same for me.
But yeah, so if there is a way to contact him, or well, if there was a way to contact him, I will have done it, because I still believe that he also could make the playoffs, and he's the best Spanish player of all time, even though he didn't play that much. But yeah, if he comes back, I do think that he will probably perform really good on the Open Grand League and get a spot on the Trackmania Grand League.
Hmm. You said that before this podcast, or when we spoke, that you hope that you answer all the questions, so we don't have to do a podcast until 2021. So then, season 2 is coming up after the summer. What do we need to know about that, and what info can you give us about the season 2?
Oh, we lost an MG again, and there he is.
Sorry about this. Fucking
No
shit.
problem.
So the question I was about to ask before the Discord declined me again is that what do we need to know about season 2 about the Trackmania Grand League that is taking place after the summer?
Not much, to be honest. I think we've said a lot.
Yep.
But yeah, the main thing is that you can be sure that you have multiple Open Grand League players coming up onto the next season. And our plans are to kind of have the at least 2 seasons a year. I think that's a great great thing to do. It's not that much, but it's not too much or not enough. So it's probably the same. You'll know more about our project on season 2, but we do not even ourselves know how it will go. We still want to see how season 1 goes, and this is our main focus. But yeah, about season 2, that nothing much to say, to be quite honest. As you said, if there is any questions that needs an answer, this is the time, because I'm kind of, to be quite honest, I'm kind of losing my time answering like pointless, at least in my eyes, that pointless subjects that I see on Discord or Twitter. So I don't know if you do have any, like, even like, if you like questions or words to say about the league itself, even though it's negative or things like that, you can, and I can answer to it. But I shouldn't be like I shouldn't have like I shouldn't put too much time on those kind of things.
Yeah.
Especially when I see a lot of things on Twitter and a lot of things that makes me want to answer, but I know that it shouldn't it wouldn't profit the league itself. But Brent discussed about it on his stream, for example, of seeing the same people over and over, like criticizing all the moves we do. Like, for example, we can discuss about the when Lunari was out,
Yep.
seeing the same people saying, "Wow, well, nice rules. They have two players in one org," things like that. And there was a really smart answer from Dank that did say that, like, he said the right words. 2 months ago, all those organizations, or most of those organizations, were not on the game, and there is still people being able to complain about the fact that we have Solari and Lunari, even the fact that they brought more than 10,000 people during the beta season. So you should be happy about it, and I don't even get why those people complains when themselves, like, it doesn't bother themselves. They do not have the level to compete on the Grand League, so it's not like they stole me a spot. So I really would like to see those kind of people. Just like, if you do not like the Grand League, well, okay, but just stop complaining about everything on the official Twitter of the Grand League or on the game. Just block the league. Do not watch it. Do not participate on it. But we will move forward with or without you. And I like seeing, for example, Subtimal getting interested in the competition, where during last season he trolled a lot on the streams, saying that, well, this is esports, question mark, question mark, question mark, or things like that. I did watch all the streams and all the chats. I know which people did, like, things they've done on the beta season. There is some people, some words that I won't forget. At least I'm someone that I don't know how you say that in English, but I do remember to a lot of things, and I'm not, like, forgiving things that were said back in the days during the beta season. So I'm giving all my efforts to people that wants to be part of it. All the time we are, even at the studio, like, I'm not the only one, like, working on Grand League. We are multiple people, and they do work whole days, whole weeks, a whole month to make that possible. And um, if you do not want to be part of it, well, you can just, I guess that might be hard to say, but you can, as a competitive player, you can stop playing competitively and just play Trackmania casually. um I've seen people complaining about the fact, wow, a lot of players are leaving the game. What Nado is going to do about this? Well, if they did leave the game, that's their choice. And if it's linked to what we do, well, maybe they just feel that Trackmania is not a game where they will have fun on it, or play competitively on it. So we do respect their opinions, and we won't change anything because Dutchy left, Omnipods left, or things like that. They took their decisions, and we do respect them. But yeah, that's it. I know that this has been a strong subject on Twitter. You can meme or troll or complain about everything you want, as long as it's not an objective and uh, um, um, an advice that is worth for us to listen to. We won't change anything, and you can still do it, but it's just, like, kind of makes you a fool in the eyes of a lot of players, and because we discuss a lot with the players. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with you that it's pointless, and that is a meme in the chat that obviously every time there's a crash, then this is esport, this is viewer friendly. That sort of behavior is toxic. That is something I wouldn't agree with. But would you say that there is maybe a difference between those kind of comments and comments that maybe are more constructive feedback? But I might be one of the people that is, instead of highlighting that I view the overall project as a good part, I might first start to put out maybe what I didn't like, and that is maybe the wrong way forward. But I think more people are like this, that instead of, they forget to mention what they actually think is good, and that Nadeo is coming in and it's a good or part. They instead go to pinpoint the bad mistakes. But are you able to see that constructive feedback and maybe not seeing as, okay, this is also negative, so this is also something I shouldn't really take into account?
No, I'm actually reading everything that is about Trackmania, or about Trackmania eSport, or about Trackmania Grand League. I'm watching everything on Twitter. I follow everything, and once there is, like, an idea or something that is constructive and might be even negative about the Grand League, I'll think about it and I discuss about it with people at the studio. So it's not because your comments are negative that we don't read them. It's just that it has to be something constructive and
Yeah.
it must be realistic, I would say. And as long as it is, we do take it in count. But as you said, it's easier for people to say negative things than positive ones. I haven't seen much more positive things or comments about the league, to be quite honest. But I do get it. When people like something, they do not talk about it that much.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
when they dislike something, they make a whole post about it. So yeah, I mean that's pretty normal. That's how we are as a human. We rather point out the negative things. I do get it, but as long as like like I said, there was some things that were said on Twitter or on Discord during the beta or even earlier, like 2 months ago, by some players that I had respect for, which is not acceptable. And as the guy that is working, and as the whole team behind the Grand League, uh, once you do not respect the work we do by not being able to say what you have to say in a respectful way, there will be consequences. And um, like I said to some players, there is some players that won't be able to join the Grand League, even though they perform in the Open Grand League. Um, don't worry, it's only a matter of few people, and they probably know which people they are, because they said some things that are definitely not acceptable. And I won't release that list or anything like that, because I do think that it will just create some more dramas
yeah.
and things like that. And I had issue with in the past with the pro league or things like that. But you are free to say whatever you want about the league, as long as it's in a respectful way towards us, and we'll be answering you in a respectful way as well. We do get that Grand League is not interesting for all the players. It can be really bad, like the maps or things like that. But when you expect something, you have to learn about making it in a good way, I would say.
Yeah, we are running out of time, so I just want to take this opportunity to actually. Maybe I'm not too often saying, but I really appreciate the work that Nadeo do brings in this competition. But more importantly, I had a lot of respect for you before the beta season was announced. And once you stood in that shitstorm during answering all those questions about people mingling around, being harsh towards you, being harsh towards Nadeo, saying that why this, why can we not bring tech? You still had you kept your nerves cool, you still kept your head cool, you still went on with the project that you believed in, and now the overall feedback in Trackmania is that this is the way to go. Now the people that are being harsh towards you, they are not the majority anymore, they are minority. So I just want to say that even though I had respect for you before, and you have voted the community person of the year twice in a row. That maybe now is the time I have the most respect for you, because now you have also faced some diversity. You had to show that even though what to say is like, once you face something that is not positive, then it's the time to see what character people are. They still go on with what they believe in, because once everything is going good, well, everybody can handle good times, but bad times, once you face criticism, is once you see the characters. I just want to say that to make it clear that I really have respect for you, and well, you are the right person to move the esports side of Jackmania forward.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It means a lot to have such comments, and that's why I'm doing it. I'm doing this to provide a way for the people around the Trackmania esport, which mean you as a journalist, or even the players, like seeing really about being able to make his dream kind of reality in Northern is something I love to see. Same goes for Kappa or Matt, which is in an amazing organization, Twin as well. I'm pretty sure all those players will enjoy so much more Trackmania right now, while being in a supportive organization. So as long as those people are kind of quote unquote happy, I will keep, like we will, shouldn't be say I shouldn't say I, because I'm definitely not the only guy working on this, and there is much more people putting so much effort on the Grand League and on esports since a longer time than me. You have obviously Adrienne, like I said, that is like such an amazing person, and she's doing all she can to help Trackmania on esport with me. You have Ali Noah, which is also just amazing, like talking like with all the community, and you should like people should thank those people much more, because um, most of like for example, if you take the place of Alineo and go on Twitter and you see only like memes, negative comments about Trackmania, about Nadeo, uh, I do see a lot of pictures about like making Nadeo such as a studio that is doing nothing on their games. You should have at least some respect towards the studio, because without them you wouldn't have the game you have right now. uh, and you have people such as Alinoa that is like putting all her efforts to uh, give a voice to the community on many ways, and she's supporting so many events, so many players, and those people should be respected as they should be. um, and I feel that this is something that must change. And the feeling, I mean, I'm not gonna force people to like Nadeo. If you do feel that Nadeo is doing nothing or useless, well, I can do nothing for you. But if 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 you do love the game and you do love, I've played this game for 10 years, and uh, this is something like I love this game so much, and now joining the studio is also, I said it wasn't a dream. It's not, but it's an achievement, a huge achievement and opportunity. And once you are in the background of it, you see actually how much people works and put passion on Trackmania, and this is how now we have such a great game. So I'm just saying that was just a quick word on how much you should respect the people at the studio, because they are working so much to provide you the game we have right now. We know that we are not like a big studio. We don't have like the financials that Riot Games had or have, or Epic Games, but we are doing this at our scale, and we are doing this with the passion we all have about Trackmania. So that should be at least something, and that should be something that, like, to be honest, I'm really bothered by all the things I see on Twitter. I know that I cannot stop them, but it's just like seeing always the same people like talking shit about Nadeo or some like specific tournaments. I mean, we are not evolving, and that's the issue I have right now, is that we had the same thing like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years ago, and right now that we have a specific project towards esports, it even continues. So just bothering me, to be honest. But yeah, people are doing what they want, and I don't think I should be like I could change their mentality. Um, just know that I'm actually watching everything, and Nadeo, like people at Nadeo are watching everything, and people are maybe not like some people. I'm not saying it's the case, but some people do not have the same um, um, way of reacting to negative comments all the day, and some people might taking it like personally. So I mean, it's pointless, but people are doing what they want, and they can like feel free to do it. But at some point, there will be some consequences. At least if you do want to play competitively, and some things like could be avoided to say, and it has been said. So yeah, I mean, just a quick word on how much like people at Nadeo are working on esport, and trying to provide like even the Open Grand League. You have like 3 or 4 people working since 1 month just only on the title, and they should be the guy that should be rewarded. And I haven't seen like positive comments about it. We just create like they just created a whole title pack with a whole new system. Um, we like there was the release of the shows like 1 month ago. It like people loved it, and we should like appreciate those kind of moments when things are going good. we should be able to say, well, we are moving forward, and stop like only pointing out the negative things, because there will always be negative things on the game, but there is also a huge positive aspect on many things, and we should be able to point out those things and reward the people working on those kind of things.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. We are running out of time, but is there any topics that you feel that we should bring up before we close the show? Maybe some topics that you feel should be voiced until we close the podcast for at least today and maybe for a little while.
um, I just see a question from Sumchimal about the franchise level
Yeah.
instead of classic player qualification. um, I do my main priority is to like I said, is the players. Even though people meme about the viewer friendly thing, which is completely stupid, and I won't say retarded, but I do think it is, because I used that word once, and people now, from all the decision we make, say that, oh well, it's viewer friendly, so they did it. That is stupid, and if you do think that, yeah, well, keep going for it. But um, like I said, my main priority is the players, and how they are surrounded by great people. That they feel supported. They feel like they are playing in a great environment. Um, and I do think that giving the ownership to the organizations will make them feel a little bit more invested, or committed to the league, which also will impact their commitment into their players, or manager or streamers, which makes the situation of each of those people way better. So I rather have some kind of franchise. It's not really a franchise system, but
Yeah.
we could call it like this. And having players feeling great in each organizations, and feeling supported, rather than just having player qualifications and not having huge organizations coming onto the game. Uh, right now, I do feel that all the players that are participating onto the Grand League are happy and ready to give everything that they have to participate on the first season. And I'm truly thinking that this season is going to be insane to watch. And even though you didn't like the beta season, we changed a lot of things, and I do think that you'll enjoy that season much more than you did on the beta. So even if you don't like Nadeo, you don't like how we go through esports, or you don't like Trackmania Grand League, um, try it, and watch one step. And if I'm pretty sure it will convince you that it's a great competition, and it's a great way for us to move forward in terms of esport.
Thank you so much for stepping up, and I really hope that we will actually do a podcast in 2020 because you are, like I said, a guy that does a lot. You have many roles. You are one of the most impactful guys in the scene, and if not, I will save up all the questions I have until 2021, right?
Yep, sure.
But thank you so much for stepping up, Softy, and appreciate the time that you took to answer the question I had and the community had, and finally getting things settled for the season one of the Trackmania Grand League.
No problem. Thank you for your time as well. And we see each other at Lyon
Yeah,
in 2 months. So yeah, I hope you guys will enjoy you will enjoy the Grand League, and all the works we've done on that first season. And hope to see you on all the streams and supporting your players, your teams. Um, you that will be a great season, and that will be a great year for Trackmania on 2020.
there we have it. As if you want to go, you can close the stream now, so we won't keep you here much longer. Thanks for everybody who tuned in. That's it. Bye bye.